All right. So Darnay, I'll go ahead and hand it over to you. I'd like to thank everyone once again for joining us this morning. My name is Melissa Ramirez. I'm the Director for Guidance and Counseling here at UISD, and we'd like to thank everyone for being present this morning for our session. Our presenter this morning will be Darnay Cooley. She is a licensed school psychologist at UTRGV. Darnay? I think you're on mute, Darnay. You want to test?
There I am.
There you go.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
Well, I want to say good morning to everyone and thank you for allowing me to spend some time with you this morning and talk a little bit about anxiety and depression in children and adolescents. So, during this presentation, we will review and go over a little bit of what anxiety is. We'll also talk about a few different anxiety disorders. We'll talk about a little bit about stress, how do you recognize stress versus anxiety. Then we will look at depression and some causes of depression and what to watch out for, and also talk a little bit about some risk factors and some ways to help. So, anxiety. Anxiety is the number one most common mental health condition in the world, and it affects over 40 million adults per year. And even before the pandemic, anxiety and depression were becoming more common among children and adolescents, increasing 27% and 24% respectively from 2016 to 2019. By 2020, 5.6 million kids, or roughly 9%, had been diagnosed with anxiety problems, and 2.4 million, roughly 4%, have been diagnosed with depression. But how do you know whether it is an anxiety disorder, or if your child or teen is just stressed out? There are signs you may see or can look for. And let's start by looking at some of the different types of anxiety disorders first. There are several different types of anxiety disorders, such as generalized anxiety disorder, social anxiety, separation anxiety, and panic disorder. And while they do have some similar symptoms, they are each different in their own way. For this discussion, I would like to first talk about what is anxiety and then discuss each anxiety disorder briefly. So, what is anxiety? Anxiety is our body's natural response to stress. So, it's normal. It's a feeling of fear or apprehension about what's to come. The first day of school, going to a job interview, giving a speech, may cause most people to feel fearful or nervous. Now, all teens experience some amount of anxiety at times. Anxiety is a normal reaction to stress, and sometimes it helps, our children or teens deal with tense or overwhelming situations. For many children and teens, things like public speaking, final exams, important competitions, or even going, out with friends can cause feelings of apprehension and unease. They may also experience an increase in heartbeat or excessive sweating, and that's how the brain responds to anxious feelings. For some children and teens, however, anxiety can go beyond these typical symptoms to negatively affect friendships and family relationships, participation in extracurricular activities, and even their schoolwork. When feelings of anxiety interfere with normal daily living, the presence of an anxiety disorder should be considered. And given that, children and teens experience a wide variety of physical and emotional changes as they grow, an anxiety disorder can be sometimes difficult to spot. many red flags may seem like usual teen or child struggles or maybe kind of just chalked up to, hormones. It's important to remember that there are many types of anxiety disorders, and they range from social anxiety to generalized anxiety. It's also worth pointing out that panic disorders and phobias fall under this category as well. Anxiety disorders don't just go away on their own. Children and teens have to learn to deal with the underlying cause. And that's why it's so important for loved ones to know the common causes of anxiety in children and teens. And once families know what causes the anxiety, it's easier for them to help their family member overcome it. So the first anxiety disorder we will look at is generalized anxiety disorder. And so, what is generalized anxiety disorder? Generalized anxiety disorder is a condition that causes excessive and continuous anxiety about many things. It is not just the occasional angst or worry about one or two things, but the obsessing over almost all aspects of your life all the time, even ordinary routine issues. The worry is out of proportion to the actual circumstance, is difficult to control, and affects how you feel physically. It often occurs along with other anxiety disorders or depression. Now, some symptoms of generalized anxiety are, having an unrealistic worry over everyday things, inability to let go of worrying thoughts or ideas. So, constantly worrying about something or harping on, one thought over and over, having lack of concentration, not being able to make decisions, trouble dealing with everyday concerns, dwelling on things that might go wrong, restlessness, having shaking or trembling, being irritable, having headaches, fatigue, and also insomnia, not being able to sleep at all or having trouble sleeping or actually sleeping too much. Next, let's look at social anxiety. Now, a social anxiety disorder or social phobia involves high levels of anxiety, fear, and avoidance of social situations due to feelings of embarrassment, being self conscious, and concerned about being judged or viewed negatively by others. For children and teens, having a social anxiety disorder is a big deal because teens and children are very social. However, if your child or teen starts acting afraid to meet new people, talk to others, and have an unrealistic worry of being judged by others, they can be suffering from a social anxiety disorder. Now, some other signs of social anxiety in teens and children include avoiding friends and social activities, and not just the occasional not wanting to go out with friends, but the constant avoidance of going out with friends or attending social activities, feeling sick, often with no actual signs of illness, having a fear of being judged, refusing to go to school, being afraid to meet new people, having a difficult time or can't speak around others. Again, having or feeling nervous, being restless or irritable. Now, let's look at separation anxiety. Now, we tend to think that separation anxiety, only happens with babies or toddlers, but older kids can wrestle with this as well. In fact, grade schoolers and teenagers can have separation anxiety disorder, which is an extreme fear of being without a parent or caregiver that is out of proportion to the situation. And separation anxiety disorder is a disorder characterized by anxiety that's excessive for the child's developmental level and related to separation from parents or or others who have a parental role or are in a caregiving role. And some symptoms may include reoccurrent and excessive distress about anticipating or being away from home or a loved one, constant excessive worry about losing a parent or loved one to an illness or a disaster, constant worry that something bad will happen, such as being lost or kidnapped, causing separation from, the parent, the caregiver, or the loved one, refusing to be away from home because of fear of being separated from the person, not wanting to be home alone and without a parent or loved one in the house, um, reluctance or refusing to sleep away from home without a parent or a loved one, or having that parental figure nearby, repeated nightmares about separation, frequent complaints of headaches, stomach aches, or other symptoms when separation from a parent or loved one is anticipated. Now, let's talk a little bit about panic disorder. So, a panic disorder involves repeated episodes of sudden feelings of intense anxiety and fear or terror that reaches a peak within minutes, having a panic attack. You may have feelings of impending doom, shortness of breath. The person having a panic attack may experience or feel chest pain or rapid fluttering of or pounding heart, having heart palpitations. And these panic attacks may lead to worrying about them happening again or avoiding situations in which they occur. Now, some symptoms of panic attacks, include, having fast, shallow breathing, shortness of breath, the pounding heart, having like heart palpitations, having a feeling or a sense of danger or impending doom. The individual may break out in excessive sweating, may feel as if they're having a choking sensation. Again, the shaking or trembling, have an intense fear that one is dying or losing control and or going crazy, having the chest tightness and heaviness. They may experience some hot flashes or chills, and the sense that nothing is real, feeling as if you are outside of your body or in a dream, disassociating a little bit. The person may experience dizziness or feeling faint, numbness or tingling, having that detached feeling, stomach cramps, nausea, headache. Now, panic attacks occur in the absence of any actual danger or threat. And some signs that a teen or a child is having a panic attack include situations where, the child goes to great lengths to avoid certain situations, things, or activities. Social withdrawal is a symptom you may see. They may frequently worry about where and when their next panic attack will occur. You may see a decline in school performance. They may make excuses, such as feeling sick, to avoid activities. They may refuse or be reluctant to leave home. They may start drinking or using drugs, usually to cope with the feelings that they're experiencing. They may become depressed. They may also become fatigued, overly tired, and they may have suicidal thoughts and or behaviors. Suicidal thoughts and behaviors should never be ignored. So don't assume your child or teen is just being dramatic or they're being manipulative or that it's something that'll pass. The risk of suicide is higher for individuals suffering from a panic disorder, and even higher if depression is also present. Substance use may also increase the risk of suicidal thoughts and behaviors. So, if your child or teen expresses any suicidal thoughts or ideation and/or behaviors, you should try to get your teen help immediately. Now that we have reviewed some of the anxiety disorders, let's discuss how we can determine what is normal stress versus anxiety. Now, there's a fine line between stress and anxiety. Both are emotional responses, but stress is typically caused by an external trigger. Stress generally is a response to an external cause, such as taking a big test, giving a presentation, having an argument with a family member or friend. Stress usually goes away once the situation is resolved. Stress can be positive or negative. And for example, the stressful situation, it may inspire, your child or teen or someone to meet that deadline that they need to meet. Or, it can cause them to lose an excessive amount of sleep if, that they're really stressed out and worried about it. But both stress and anxiety can affect your mind and body, and you may experience symptoms such as excessive worry, again, that uneasy feeling, feeling tense, headaches, or body pains. Um, you may develop high blood pressure or, experience high blood pressure. Again, the loss of sleep from constantly, worrying about the situation. Now, anxiety, on the other hand, is generally internal, meaning that it's your reaction, to the stress. Anxiety usually involves having a persistent feeling of apprehension or dread that doesn't go away and that interferes with how your teen or child lives their life. It is constant and it continues even if there is no immediate threat or the stressor, is over. Now, we have discussed what anxiety is and some anxiety disorders. Now, let's look at depression. You know, Whereas an anxiety disorder is characterized by chronic worry that impacts an individual's functioning, depression revolves less around fear or worry and more on excessive and persistent sadness or numbness. A person with depression may lose interest in activities and hobbies that they used to find rewarding or enjoyable. Their energy and motivation are usually affected, and a person with depression may feel as though they are dragging around a lead weight. So just have that heaviness, like they have the weight of the world on their shoulders. Once simple tasks such as taking a shower or cleaning the dishes, may suddenly take a lot more effort. We all have times when we feel down or sad. Depression is the feeling of sadness, despair, or hopelessness that does not go away. In someone with depression, this feeling can last for weeks or months and interfere with the person's ability to participate in everyday activities. Depression affects a person's mood, their outlook on life, um, their thoughts and behaviors. It also can cause fatigue, irritability, loss of appetite, headaches, and insomnia. People with depression often see the world in a negative light. They can be overly critical of themselves and feel worthless and unloved. They may feel overwhelmed by small problems that, the rest of us kind of take in stride or feel as if, it's not a big deal. They feel like giving up. They pull away from people and drop out of activities, and these behaviors isolates them, and that isolation makes them feel worse. So let's look at some causes of depression and anxiety in children and adolescents. So teens and children can, face many difficulties. They're ill-equipped to handle emotionally. Some examples are, parents divorce, if they're experiencing or have any type of learning disabilities, abuse, and neglect, are just to name a few. And by nature, they feel powerless against these situations and the effects can remain with them well into adulthood. Even a child or teen who doesn't face any of these challenges, can experience depression. An inherent tendency towards depression also can cause, the problem. Although experts are not completely sure, some things can be risk factors for anxiety disorder and or depression. And one of these is genetics. Those who have someone in their immediate family with a mental health disorder, such as anxiety, depression, or ADHD. One third of those people with ADHD also have an anxiety disorder. So it makes sense that if a family member has one of these disorders, the chances of your child or teen also having an anxiety disorder or depression is increased. Depression and anxiety can run in families, but I do want to note not everyone with a depressed or anxious family member becomes depressed or anxious. Um, Besides life events and family history, other factors that may play a role in causing depression include social environment, medical conditions, and negative thought patterns. For children and teens, a stressful home environment or, neighborhood violence can lead to depression. Other possible triggers for teen depression or child depression include, again, having struggling with a learning disability that makes academic success difficult. Um, Hormone changes that can affect their mood, a physical illness they may be experiencing. Again, drug and alcohol abuse can also affect mood and lead to depression. And many teens turn to these substances to medicate their emotions. Some other causes and risk factors of anxiety and depression can be trauma. Children who endure abuse or trauma or witness traumatic events are at higher risk of developing anxiety or depression at some point in their lives. Adults who experience a traumatic event can also develop anxiety and depression. And it's important for them to find healthy ways to deal with trauma, such as, speaking, to a counselor or therapist. Failure to do so can lead to the development of more issues down the road. Stress due to an illness, having a health condition or serious illness can cause significant worry. Chronic physical illness can also contribute to anxiety and depression. And some chronic conditions associated with anxiety and depression include, a person with diabetes, and having to deal with that, having to deal with the factors that are related to that, having asthma, hypertension. Also, it is important to be aware that some physical conditions can also mimic anxiety conditions, like let's say if a person has an overactive thyroid. So, it would be useful and, important for you or for your teen or child to see their doctor or pediatrician just to kind of get an overall physical, just to kind of rule out that there aren't any medical conditions that's causing, the person to be anxious or depressed. um, Stress buildup, a big event or a buildup of smaller stressful life situations may trigger excessive anxiety and can lead to depression. For example, a death in the family, work stress, change in living arrangements or environment, family and relationship problems may major emotional shock, following a stressful or traumatic event can also lead to anxiety and depression. And, personality. Individuals with certain personality types are more prone to anxiety disorders than others are. And some research suggests that people with certain personality traits are more likely to have anxiety. For example, children who are perfectionists, easily flustered, timid, inhibited, or lack self-esteem or want to control everything, sometimes develop anxiety during childhood, adolescence, or as adults. So what to watch out for. Sometimes it's hard to determine which problem happened first. Though often depression occurs after someone has been struggling with anxiety for a while, anxiety might cause an individual to isolate themselves from the triggers of their symptoms, and that isolation may lead to depressive symptoms and a lack of interest in once enjoyable, pleasurable activities. Social anxiety and depression are particularly linked for this reason. And social anxiety can cause intense symptoms, again, what to look out for, such as nervousness, shortness of breath, and, sweating in social situations, causing a tendency for that person to isolate and a lowering of a person's self esteem. Now, some things to watch out for in your child and teen, some emotional changes. While some depressed and anxious teens express feelings of general worry, others experience subtle emotional changes, such as feeling keyed up all the time or feeling on edge, being irritable, having a difficult time concentrating, again, restlessness, and having unexpected, unexplained outbursts, of anger or crying or overwhelming sadness. There are some social changes. Anxiety and depression can negatively affect friendships. If your once social child suddenly avoids his or her favorite activities or stops making plans with friends, it is something to take note of. And you might notice your child avoiding social interactions with friends, avoiding extracurricular activities, isolating from their peer groups, and spending increased amount of time alone. And some physical changes, many of the physical complaints that can occur with an anxiety disorder, can sometimes mimic average child or teen complaints, which tend to increase as they get older. Pay attention to patterns. A couple of headaches here and there shouldn't be a cause of concern, for example, but frequent headaches, constantly can raise some red flags. Watch out for these common psychosomatic complaints, frequent headaches, including migraines, gastro intestinal problems, unexplained aches and pains, body aches, in different areas, excessive fatigue, being overtired, complaints of feeling, not feeling well with no obvious medical cause or explanation for it. Changes in eating habits, it can be a decrease in eating or even, in eating too much, overeating. Sleep disturbances, is another thing to watch out for. The American Academy of Pediatric recommends that, children and teens age 13 to 8 get at least 8 to 10 hours of sleep on a regular basis to promote optimal health. And, Pediatricians also recommend shutting down screen times 30 minutes prior to bedtime and removing all electronic devices from, the child or teen's bedroom so that that doesn't interfere with them getting the recommended amount of sleep. And it's no secret that, homework demands, our children are growing, changing brain structure, extracurricular activities they're involved in, and screen time can all cut into the sleep habits of our children and teens. Therefore it can be difficult to know whether fatigue is a product of anxiety or depression or of a busy schedule. So some things to watch out for, in your child is, are they having a difficult time falling asleep constantly just about every night? Do they have a difficult time staying asleep? Are they having frequent nightmares? When they get up in the morning, are they not feeling refreshed after a sleep? Poor school performance. Given that anxiety and depression can affect everything from sleep habits to eating habits to missing school due to physical issues, it should come to no surprise that poor academic performance can also result from untreated anxiety and/or depression. School avoidance, missed days due to anxiety related illnesses, and persistent worry can make it difficult for anxious children to keep up with their workload. So, watch out for changes in your child, significant jumps in grades, and usually grades going down, frequently missing assignments. In school and in class, describing feeling overwhelmed by the workload constantly, procrastinates, on or has difficulty concentrating on homework assignments or classroom assignments more than usual, and panic attacks. Not all anxious teens experience or children experience panic attacks, and some experience mild symptoms of panic without enduring a full blown panic attack. The following symptoms are common among individuals with anxiety disorders who are experiencing a panic attack. Again, the having that rapid heartbeat, the sweating and trembling, feeling dizzy, having an upset stomach, having difficulty breathing, chest pains, feeling like they're dying or they're going crazy, and also experiencing the numbness and tingling in their arms and legs. So, all of these are just some things that you can watch out for in your child and teen. So, how to help? So, how do you help your child manage these symptoms? Managing anxiety is an important life skill which you can help your child develop. One of the most important ways to help your child or teen develop the skill is by talking with them about their worries, keeping that, the lines of communication open. By talking openly about anxiety, you send the message, to the individual that they can come to you when they need to and that they can talk to you about anything. And even if even if the individual doesn't always want to talk, they'll know that you're there to support them. And here are other key ways to help your child or teen to learn to manage everyday anxiety. Helping the child face anxiety. Acknowledging your child or teen's fear. Don't dismiss or ignore it. It's important for your child to feel that you take them seriously and that you believe they can overcome their fears. The individual also needs to know that you'll be there to support them no matter, what it is that they're going through. You want to gently encourage, the individual to do things they're anxious about, but don't push them to face a situation that they don't want to face. You just kind of want to gently encourage them. You know, help the individual to set small goals for things that they feel a little nervous or anxious about. Encourage your child to meet the goals, but don't step in too early, to take control, if it looks like that they're not achieving the goal or that they're struggling a little bit. For example, your child might be anxious about performing in front of others. As a first step, you can suggest your child practice their lines in front of, a mirror or in front of a family member. Try to um, try not to make a fuss if your child avoids a situation because of anxiety. Just let them know that you believe that they'll be able to manage their feelings in the future. And, by taking things step by step, try to acknowledge all the steps that your child takes, no matter how small these steps are. Helping your child or teen explore and understand feelings. Tell them about your own experience, as a child or a teenager, if you've struggled with any of these issues, or just about your experience, in general growing up. Remind your child that many, other children and teens feel anxious, and that, feeling anxious is normal. Help your child understand that it's normal to go through a big range of emotions and that sometimes these can be strong emotions. Talk with your child about their other emotions. For example, you seem excited about going, out with your friends today. And, this sends a message that all emotions, positive and negative, come and go, and that they can talk about, both positive and negative feelings. You want to listen actively, let your teen or child explain their feelings in their own words, and don't rush to reassure them or resolve problems for them. This lets your child know that you understand, how they're feeling. It can also help your child identify their own thoughts and feelings, which is a good first step to in order to learn to manage them. Give your child, and this goes without saying, love and support. Show your child affection, for example, by hugging and telling them regularly that, you love them. Your love or that contact lets your child know that, you're there to help, them cope when they're feeling anxious, and that they can, turn to you and rely on you to, receive comfort. Avoid labeling your child as shy or anxious. Try to be a good role model for your teen or child in the way that you manage your own stress and deal with your own anxiety. So if they see you, engaging in healthy, effective coping strategies, this also in turns help them to learn how to manage their stress and anxiety. Thinking about think about your family life and routine. Make time in your family routine for things that your teen or child enjoys and find relaxing. These could be simple things like playing or listening to music, reading books, going for walks. Spend time with people your child likes, trust and feel comfortable around, and encourage a healthy lifestyle, for your child or teen, with plenty of physical activity, sleep, eating healthy foods, and, drinking plenty of water. And it's also important for your child to avoid alcohol and other drugs, as well as unnecessary teen stress. So, just want to say that an anxiety disorder or depression is unlikely to go away on its own. So, seeking professional help early for your child is the or teen is the best thing that you can do. Also getting treatment, shows your teen or child that, that they're not alone, and that you care about what they're, going through, and that you're going to try to help them the best they can. Options for professional help includes, speak to your general practitioner or your child's pediatrician. They can guide you to the most appropriate services for your child or your family, if you don't know where to go. Psychologist, your child's pediatrician might be able to recommend someone that they can go to see, to talk about what it is that they're going through and help them to develop and learn coping skills and techniques to manage their anxiety and depression. You can always turn to your school counselors. Counselors such as social workers or LPCs. There's also parenting hotlines, such as the National Parent Helpline, that can give you information about different resources in your local community, and steps that you can take. Um, Treatment. Your local community health center or local mental health services in your area is a good place to go through if your child or teen are experiencing any of these issues. Treatment usually focuses on strategies to help, the child or teen cope with anxiety and managing negative thoughts associated with depression. And this means that your child learns to manage anxiety and depression rather than avoiding it. Um, Children don't usually need medication, but health professionals might prescribe it under certain circumstances. And depending on the severity of your teen's depression and its causes, a combination of either talk therapy, medication, or both can really be helpful. Usually, a combination of both will get the best results. An antidepressant helps correct the chemical imbalance within the brain, so that the child or teen begins to start to feel better, but the negative thought patterns that possibly leads to the depression or anxiety may still remain, and therapy will help change those patterns. The therapist or the counselor can help the the individual to look at those patterns and start to change their negative thought patterns into positive thought patterns, so that the individual can better cope with stresses in life that continue or contribute to depression. Now, we're coming to an end to the presentation, but before we end, I would like to show this video of Eleanor, and what it was like for an individual actually struggling with anxiety in depression, as a child and a teen. And this video will also, I hope, gives you some insight into what it's like for parents and how they react, and how she was able to eventually cope and get the help. There is also a section where there's teens that, talk about anxiety and depression, what it feels like, for them. So I hopefully this video will give you a chance to get an idea of what a teen with anxiety and depression experiences, and how they see their situation, and some tips on how to manage that. And I know that we're coming close to the hour, so we may not get to see the whole video, but I am going to show a part of it for you.
When you're feeling all alone, only you to hold your own. No one there to help you, only there to hold you down. So stop, don't beat up yourself, 'cause it's everyone else.
Anxiety is difficult to understand and to explain because everyone experiences it differently. It is much more than just worrying. It's the body's fight or flight reaction in overdrive. Have you ever leaned just a little too far back in your chair and caught yourself before falling over? For that split second, you feel a white-hot sense of urgency and panic. Anxiety can feel like that, but lasts for minutes or even hours and comes on with no warning. Often people with anxiety will avoid situations that might be even the slightest bit overwhelming, like going to class or buying groceries. Avoidance can lead to falling behind, feeling disconnected from the world, and ultimately depression. This is Eleanor's battle with anxiety.
I dealt with a lot of bullying. Throughout elementary school, I was a big target for bullies.
Why are you such a lame-o?
When I got into high school, things just went downhill from there. I started experiencing severe depression and anxiety. I had trouble in school, I had trouble with relationships, and it took its toll on me. My name is Eleanor. Until about 12 years old, I kind of dressed like a boy. I liked guys' clothing a lot better. It was more comfy, and I felt more comfortable in it. And that just made me a huge target for bullying because they said, oh, you're not like all of the other girls who are wearing lip balm now and stuff like that. It was brutal because I would spend lunches sitting alone at the corner of the school just by myself doing nothing, and I felt this is just so terrible. I have nobody here. I made a few friends, and I brought them all together into one group. They turned around and told me, sorry, but we don't think you fit in with our group anymore, and we don't want you to hang out with us anymore. And that was heartbreaking for me. All those times that I was rejected as a kid have stuck with me throughout my adulthood. Those are the things that stick with you. As a child, you may be able to brush things off and pretend like everything's okay, but these things carry into your adolescence. Then they get worse in adolescence usually because hormones and all that. I had all these insecurities going into high school. I was feeling worthless, I was feeling hopeless, I was feeling tired. My grades slipped. They started going down. I lost interest in school. I lost interest in people. I lost interest in all the sports I was doing, all that. I just couldn't do them anymore because I couldn't get out of bed.
How are you feeling?
Whenever my parents would ask me what was wrong, I would say, oh, I'm just tired. The problem with depression and anxiety is that they perpetuate each other. When I'm depressed, I become anxious if I have to do anything.
How's school?
How was your test?
What'd you get? You don't remember. Did you just write it yesterday? Eleanor, what is going on with you? You don't talk to us anymore. You don't tell us what you got in class.
Anxiety is more than just feeling stressed or feeling nervous about something. It's literally a physical reaction. I can't move when I'm having an anxiety attack. I can't move, I can't speak. The last time I had an anxiety attack, I was with one of my best friends. I had to be quiet. I had to have my space. I couldn't have him touch me. I couldn't have him come near me. Sometimes I will rock, I will shake, I will scream, I will yell during an anxiety attack because it is so brutal. It's this constant worrying inside of my head. It goes and goes, making me feel like I'm gonna explode on the inside. It's this intense fear that typically is irrational. To me, there's no cause for my fear. Sadness goes with depression, fear goes with anxiety. What people don't realize about anxiety, I find, is that they think, oh, it's just, oh, I can't go into the room because I'm nervous about talking to people. It's literally like, I will cry, I will hit people, I will do anything not to go into that room because this fear is so crippling that I will do anything not to do the thing that I'm supposed to do right now. It's excruciating, it really is. One time when I had a bout of anxiety, it lasted for a week. It was so brutal, but the thing was, it wasn't even in my head, it was in my body. This state of constant anxiety. You feel it, this knot in your chest. You can't breathe properly. You feel sick to your stomach. And that's how it was for about a week. And I couldn't get out of it. It was terrible. I had to take certain medications to get me through it because I was crying, I was bawling because I felt so uncomfortable. But I come to terms with the fact that they can happen without me understanding why. And the reason I'm able to come to terms with that is because I have positive coping tools now. I do things such as, I'll take deep breaths. I had a fight with my parents the other day, and it just triggered everything.
I've gotten calls from your science teacher, your math teacher, your English teacher. All your grades are going downhill. Now what are you doing? I've told you time and time again, you need to get this fixed, okay? Because I'm not...
I need to go. I can't do this right now. I'm sorry.
But what I did was I took myself away from everything. I sat in my room, I took some deep breaths. I calmed myself down. But what I do, I focus on one thing, focus on that one thing, put all my energy into focusing on that one thing and breathe through it. And eventually, I'm able to let it go. But I have to sit there until it's gone. Other things I do is I will put on music. I have a favorite playlist that I love to sing to. I love singing. It's my escape. It's a release for me. My relationship with my parents was very strained when I was a teenager. They were scared for me. The way they present their fear, I receive it as anger. I feel like they're yelling at me for things. So I would get angry at them for being angry at me for having problems.
Get out of my way! No, you
tell
I need to
me.
go now. Move out of my way.
Get back here! I'm not finished talking to you.
But they didn't know about the drugs, about most of what I was going through. They didn't know about it because I hid it from them because I was so disappointed in myself for feeling the way that I felt that I didn't want to disappoint the people that meant the most to me. And that happened one day because I was arrested for possession of marijuana, and they had to pick me up from jail. And that was the most embarrassing moment in my life. You know, the cops didn't scare me. Nobody, that scared me, but what scared me was my parents. Because I knew I had just disappointed the people that loved and believed in me the most. And I felt like I was a huge failure to them.
What are you thinking?
You got to stop this crap.
I can't believe I had to go down to the police station to get my daughter out of jail.
The best thing they ever did for me and for them was educate themselves. They educated themselves on depression and anxiety and figured out, why do people with these things do what they do? They're able to step into my shoes and go, this is what it feels like to be you. So that opened the lines of communication between us. I started to become less angry at them. And as I started to fix my own problems, I became less of an angry, angsty teenager and more of a mature adult. And I was able to communicate with them in meaningful ways. So the more we communicate, the better it is. And the more they treat me like an adult and understand where I'm coming from, things have just gotten better over the years. I always say to parents, you gotta have empathy for your kids, but the kids gotta have empathy for their parents as well. They gotta realize that their parents are human beings and that they're going through things and that they care about you just as much, probably even more than you care about yourself. And just to give your parents a break sometimes is a huge thing to do. Just understand that they're human, they have feelings, they have emotions, they may make mistakes sometimes too, and understanding that. In grade 11, I was ready to drop out of school. I was so done with everything, I couldn't handle it. What they did was they put me into an alternative education program within the school, and I found one of my longest standing friends there, which was my teacher. I still see her to this day. I see her every couple of months. We go out for lunch and everything, and we catch up because she was such a huge influence on me in my life at that time. What she did, she was a teacher, she was a mentor, she was a friend, she was a mom, she was a therapist all at once. Because I would walk into that classroom with a sullen look on my face, just a look of just terribleness. And she would come up to me and say, let's go talk in my office, which was actually just the hallway, but we would go talk in the hallway and she'd say, what's wrong? Tell me now. And so I'd tell her and she'd be like, okay, so what are you gonna do about it? And I'd tell her what I think I'm gonna do about it. I'm like, okay, well, it's up to you. You gotta think about it, this is your decision, but you have to do what's right for you. She would always remind me of something along those lines. She didn't put the answers in my head. She let me come up with them myself. And so the more I came up with them myself, the more I learned about myself and the more I understood what I was going through. But she was always there as a support when I needed it. And that was what I really needed, was I needed someone other than my parents to be a support to me. I didn't have the friends that could support me. She was that person for me. She got me through high school. And what she did was she encouraged the things I was interested in. She would see like a little glimmer of interest in something that I would do and say, hey, you should pursue that. And eventually we came to the conclusion that I was ready for university at the end of high school and that psychology was probably the best route for me. So I started going to university for psychology and I took my first class and I went, wow, this is a lot different. This is way more up my alley. This is a lot more interesting. And so that interest just grew and I was able to put myself on a positive pathway. As I grew up, I started to have much more acceptance for everyone around me. I don't see anything as a reflection of myself anymore. I see people's actions as a reflection of what's going on in their own lives. And that's helped me come to terms with being bullied as well, because I see bullies as people who are just going through some serious
Okay, and I'm
issues.
gonna just stop it there. Um, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I thought that it was a good video just to kind of get an idea of what an actual teen goes through, and how they see their anxiety and depression, and just the different tools that they use, and the resources, the parents, the school teachers, just being there as a support for them. But this next page is just some of the references that I use to put this presentation together. And I want to say thank you, and open it up to any questions if you have any.
Darnay, we want to thank you for your time and of course your knowledge. Very, very insightful video that you showed and presentation that you provided us today. So I do want to thank you, and I do want to thank everyone that was on today. I want to remind everyone that this is being recorded. This was recorded. It's going to be put up on our counselor website, up on the uisd.net site. I did receive a few texts on my phone while the presentation was going on. I want you to know, Darnay, that this has helped a lot of people, this information
Oh,
that you have
I'm
provided. So,
wonderful. Thank you.
yes, thank you, thank you. I have people reaching out to me saying, I could see my own child in what she's saying, and so this has been very helpful. So thank you so much. I don't know if anybody has any questions. I don't see any questions on the chat. I do want to remind everyone that I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording at this time.